This is a Podfire production.
Hi, I'm Ryan and welcome to the Neuronirvana podcast, where we dive into everything to do with mental health and well-being. Anything that can improve your life, we're here to talk about. Awesome. Well, I'd like to introduce Nathaniel Hodges to the episode of Neuronirvana. So, I've known Nat for, 5 years now?
Yeah, about that.
So, I'm just going to go off the cuff here with what I know about Nat. So, Nat grew up in northern New South Wales.
Yep.
If I'm wrong about anything, I'll clear it
I'm
up.
not
Or if it
correct you. I'm
sounds
gonna
good,
fly
just
with
go with it. Okay. And then from there, you completed a Bachelor of Sports Exercise Science.
Yep.
And then you opened up a boutique type gym, very good community. I think they're focused on powerlifting.
It was at the time, yeah.
Yeah. So Nat was a powerlifter. Probably doesn't look like it now, but he used to lift
moons ago.
heavy things, a lot heavier than me. And then from there, you then moved on to a business/personal development consultancy agency called Next Level, which I was a part of as well. That was throughout Australia and...
We had some international stuff in LA.
Yep.
So we would go back and forth. That was kind of our party piece.
Yep,
Yeah.
cool. So after that, you became a yogi, yes?
Not aspiring.
Aspiring yogi. And then from there, I've seen Nat grow into now an Outliners consultancy agency, which is basically personal business development.
Yep.
He's actually got a book, which I'll bring up now, Phoenix.
Oh, well.
So, I've read the book. It's fantastic. So if anyone that wants the book, it's a little bit different to what you might think. Very interesting views in there. So definitely, if you're looking for a great book, jump onto
Thanks,
that
mate.
one.
What a little plug.
No worries. And that's what brings you here to who you are today, yes?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, pretty good.
Cool.
Pretty good up the gut.
That's pretty good.
I suppose
Nailed it.
In any other context, I wouldn't jump in because it wouldn't be relevant. But it is relevant for some of the things. So in between that, I was lecturing and tutoring at QUT through my master's program, which I shouldn't have been because my grades weren't up to scratch. But I got along with some people. And I went back and finished off psych in amongst all that stuff as well. And the only reason I'm kind of saying that is because it does bleed into what Outliers is now. So that's the only, now we're here.
Cool, awesome. All right, so tell me a little bit about young Nat at school. What was Nat like at school? Fill us in.
Cracking question. What was I like at school early on? Really social. Had a lot of mates. Never got along. I had a great time at school. Honestly, I absolutely loved it. Loved the social side. I had a good head on my shoulders. I didn't have to apply myself that much to kind of. I was never outstanding, but I got through enough where Mum thought I was trying. So I was like, yeah, sweet, that covers that. But I was just ticking boxes. I was never a standout at anything. And I got the typical, report card feedback. He could be great if he applied himself. And I was like,
Yeah, been there too, yeah.
yeah. So I loved school, man. I absolutely loved it. And I remember a lot of my friends complaining about it. And I just didn't understand their view of it. I actually got along with teachers really well too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a great time.
Yeah,
I was very, people would tell me when I was young, people would tell my parents when I was younger, that I was extremely easy to get along with like an adult, whatever that meant.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I suppose mature for your age would be...
I suppose so, but I was just being me, but that's what people saw.
Yeah. So you didn't feel any different as a kid to other kids? Did you feel that growing up or no? No real difference. No, the only thing I did notice now looking back was I was a lot more sensitive than other people. Yes,
I was
that's
hiding.
Something that I've definitely...
We spoke about that actually.
Yes.
I used to hide a lot of sensitivity, like uncontrollable sensitivity.
Because you had to be tough, right, to be a guy.
Exactly. Play a lot of footy, Yeah.
And would you lift heavy things,
lift
right?
Heavy things.
Wow.
Lift heavy things, exactly.
Did that lead into that? Was that one of the things that went through your mind? Maybe, was that one of the reasons what got you into
lifting?
Lifting, yeah.
Yeah. No idea how to deal with grief. And so that's what kind of the gym felt safe.
Okay.
Lost my old man when I was 16. When I was 16, to suicide. And it was a shock. No one saw it coming. Obviously, it fractured a lot of our family, and it was pretty full on. But I found some respite in academics and in lifting weights, and I got I got it confused. I got the grief process and the dealing with that confused with my personal purpose. So I thought I'd found my thing nice and early. I thought it was gym and it was academics. Like that was my thing. Looking back, it was a complete vice for not understanding grief and not understanding how angry I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can speak personally the same. Like for me, gym was a way I could shut my mind off, right? So for that hour, it was training hard, and I used to think, I'd train so hard that there was no chance for me to think about anything, right? And, that was like a moment of peace, and people didn't kind of understand. So, and one thing I wanted to ask, and I don't know whether it's just the industry that we've been in and because we've been a part of it, I do find that a lot of people use exercise as their stepping stone into personal development or into sort of moving to that next level. Is that, could you?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about how physicality plays into our mental health, and it's a fine line. I'll tell you why exercise is a fine line. Again, this is actually quite an unpopular view, which might be a lot of my views actually. Now,
hey, look, all right, we're here for your view, and nothing is off the table here. Nothing is off limits. So yeah.
All right, so your more generalized mental health, generalized anxiety, generalized depression, exercise is massively beneficial, right? Massively 100%. Beneficial. So beneficial that no one talks about it because it just solves so many problems. Now, in some stress-related pathologies, whether it's developmental stress disorder or adjustment disorder or those things, normally that come from contextual trauma as a youngster, especially showing up like attachment issues and things like that, exercise makes it worse. And so people don't like to look at this. And I'll tell you why it makes it worse. And you'll see people that get addicted to very intense weightlifting, things like CrossFit and very long endurance activities, you typically find they have some developmental trauma. Because the intensity gives them a neurochemical holiday from their neurotic patterns.
Which is basically what I just said before. That's correct. Yeah, it definitely does, because you are away from the thinking, away from that for that.
The anxiety. Typically the anxiety that shows up in the gap of attachment. And the reason why it makes it worse is because we now know as professionals in this industry, the way to get someone out of that is integration of body, mind and breath. Hands down the best approach for developmental stress-like pathologies. And Bessel-van der Kolk is the cornerstone of this. Understanding how body, mind, and breath must come back together to make sure this person feels the harmony in their body and the substance of their body.
Yeah.
Intense exercise does the opposite, mate. Intense exercise puts the body in one direction, the mind in one direction, and the breath trying to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you get the neurochemical holiday for the 4-hour window after intense exercise, and you're straight back into it when that wears off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's the guy with that popular book, The Body Keeps Score.
Body Keeps Score.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting view and something that. So when you talk about mind, body, and breath, I suppose I think that's why Dr. Bessel talks a lot about yoga is such a massive, And I know in my life when my yoga practice is all over the shop sometimes, but when I have been really committed, I definitely felt the benefits of that 100%.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your yoga practice like at the moment, Matt?
Mate, my practice is actually pretty tidy at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah. Practice my 90-minute session this morning.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm right into it. Right into it. I probably lift now twice a week and practice 3 or 4.
When I was at my best, that's exactly what if I had to choose yoga or go to the gym, I'd always go to yoga. So my practice is Bikram hot yoga. I love hot yoga.
Tidy.
So what's your favourite?
Mate, I cycle through a lot of them. I kind of am at the level now where I kind of know what my body wants, whether it wants something quite fast and flowy or whether it wants slow and deep, whether it wants more of a sadhana type mind focus session where it's just all about following my breath while I move and I can shift my attention that way. So I'm right into it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are those somatic practices would you recommend for anyone that's listening that
Yeah.
maybe dealing with some of these
Cool.
traumas?
Good question. So the first, I'll give a kind of, if you experience what I'm about to say, then I'll go into some of what you can do. So typically with people that experience increased levels of stress, which is that inner feeling of disharmony, and it feels like there's inescapability, like you can't get away from yourself, and you just go on a spiral. So somatic type stuff is really, really good for that type of experience.
Yeah.
Where it feels like everything's going fine, and then you experience a little bit of stress, maybe then the fear of loss, and then that spirals into an intense inner experience. That was me, like forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And so some basic somatic style stuff that really, really helped me was something called beach balls. So simple. Beach ball is literally just breathing in and breathing out. And you following your hands like a beach ball, and it follows your rib cage.
Yeah.
And so the
So
practice,
you focus on looking at your hand, or you focus on sort of your...
you focus your mind on following how your hands and rib cage move together. And that's where you get the concentration type practice while following the breath and with the physical movement as well. It's a really simple one to start.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So with your breath, is there like a time? Like, is it 4 seconds in, or for just whatever feels right for you, or what kind
I
of...
try not to get too snazzy with the numbers. I normally just try and find the top and the bottom with natural breath.
Yeah.
And like if I'm getting really, if I really want to focus on it, I'll just extend the exhale just a touch longer. So we're talking about heart rate variability here as well. On the inhale, heart rate should lift a little bit and you'll feel it. On the exhale, the heart rate should lower.
Exactly. Yeah.
Heart rate variability.
And that's why if you do breathing exercises, if your exhale is longer than your inhale, then your heart rate should always come down.
Yes.
And vice versa. So that's a good way of
Yeah.
regulating your heart rate. That's something that I learned
Yeah.
as well, which is really, really...
Yeah, that's
Cool.
right. And
Yep.
you see it a lot if you look at, charts of PTSD, whether it's EMG or whatever you're looking at, or even HRV or heart rate variability. In PTSD, it's all over the place. Right?
Mm.
There's no confluence between breath and heart at all. Like at all, it's all over the place. And so even just starting there, if you've got some PTSD like stuff going on, even just learning about HRV and aligning those things can really downregulate the stress. Because the stress is what tips people over.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there's a great YouTube video, Alan Watts, I don't know if you've heard of Alan Watts,
Yep.
and he describes exactly what you're saying. So if you can regulate your breath, so anxiety, for example, can have a heart rate of, say, 120 beats, so it's quite high,
Yep.
but then so's excitement, right?
Exactly.
So what's the difference is one heart rate is actually nice and smooth, whereas the other one's kind of quite jagged,
All over
right?
the place,
All over the
yep.
place. So that's how... If you use your breath, you can then hopefully get yourself from an anxiety, even to a new... I'm not going to say you're going to go to
You can
excited,
just trim the
but you
edge.
can then like bring it back to a place where it's manageable, and
Yeah.
you can then use other stuff like, or for me, is gratitude is another good one. So
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
So yeah, there's beach ball, which is nice, and the focus there is feeling like your center of self is in the middle of your rib cage. So and again, about bringing that center down into the middle of the rib cage, following the breath with your mind, but also following the ribs and hands at once. So it's really integrated. The other one I'll share too is about hemispheric synchronicity, which is a fancy word. It just means normally the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere in someone that's experienced contextual trauma is out of whack. They're not synchronized properly.
Yep.
So what's happening is the left-hand side typically are manager type, feeling like, get your shit together, keep your head on straight, you're an adult, grow
Yep.
up.
I say that to myself quite a bit.
Me
Nah.
too. And the right-hand side of your brain, which is focused on things like chaos, meaning, and danger, very pattern-driven. Left-hand side is very certainty-driven, very logical, and the right-hand side is very pattern-driven, as I said, creative,
Yep.
chaotic, and looks for danger. And what you have is this complete desynchronization where the right-hand side of the brain goes, we're in danger, and the left-hand side goes, no, we're not, like, relax. And so you've got desynchronization.
That sounds like it's never going to work in anyone, right? You've got this
No.
constant to-fro battle happening.
And you like the typical, when I'm working with someone, I know where they're at as soon as they say this. They beat themselves up for not being able to control themselves. And I'm like, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And so it's, the biggest challenge I find with working with clients like that is they're open and willing to understand why. But to truly work on yourself in an integrated way, you've got to let go of the very westernized myth of work hard, stay stable, like make something of yourself, and force yourself to do things.
I love that.
You've got to turn that down to even access somatic style healing.
Yeah.
You can't do them both at the same time.
No, that's very interesting. That's one thing that I try to also portray to people is, this idea of success, is so obscured today. Like, if I asked you what was a successful day, they'd be like, oh, well, I hit my KPIs.
Totally.
No, it's like, well, did you open the door for an old lady, or did you, what I mean? Did you do something to help someone else? Like, for me, that's a successful day when you've done something to better like other people's lives. And then did you work on yourself? Like, what did you do today that you overcame today for yourself? Like, not who cares about the success on the outside. So that's
Man,
cool.
I've got one for you. Ready?
Here we go.
When I really want to jar people about that, I'll say, look, sharing people about your achievement style life will be as jarring as racism really soon. So when someone turns around and goes, oh, I achieved this and I achieved this, soon it'll be as jarring and as uncomfortable as a really, really old guy that doesn't realise it's really not cool to be racist anymore.
That is cool. I like that.
You
I'm writing that one down.
You heard it here first. Whatever the date is, there'll be a time where people will say that, and you'll feel uncomfortable.
No, I'm liking the shift that's happening in the world today, and I think it's long overdue. And yes, I saw, and I've talked to you personally about it before. Like, sometimes I feel like, what have we done as a race? Like, are we going to be able to come back from this? But these things have got to happen, I think, for them to then grow and evolve. And we are living in an exciting time in this world. But I'd like to step back a little bit. So you talked a bit about your father. Obviously, that was a very difficult process.
Yep.
So when did the penny drop? Like, for you, like that you knew you weren't coping with the grief, or that you kind of...
Yeah, it's a good question. When did the penny drop? When there was a real, what would you call? Let's say disjunction. Things weren't working. How I perceived the world and what I thought was going to happen and how I was planning things to happen just stopped working out. And I was like, you get hit with that existential question of like, either the entire world is wrong or I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And let's just go on probability. I maintain the world's wrong, but probability says I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And that's it. I just hit the wall too many times. Burnt too many relationships, burnt too many friendships, lost too much money, was too impulsive, was too rigid in a weird way. I worked hard, but I was very rigid. I couldn't let myself go. I couldn't take time off, and I just kept hitting the wall. And you begin to realize that, I began to realize that my action taking was not out of some divine inspiration, but my action taking was to turn down uncomfortable emotions I didn't understand.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get stuck there, actually.
Yeah, I definitely, like you said, the people that, work too hard, what are you running away from? What is it that you're not dealing with that makes you want to work that hard, you know, and, why you're not spending time with your family instead, or whatever, or why are you running 6,000 marathons, I mean, like,
exactly.
What is it that you're running from, or what is it that you aren't dealing with?
Can
you not sit by yourself for 10 minutes? And if you can't, then why?
Exactly.
Ask yourself why.
That's the test. Yeah. Honestly, that is the test. Go and sit with yourself for 10 to 15 minutes and just let me know what happens.
Yeah. Or if you want to go extreme, go do Vipassana and then come back to me, all right?
Yeah. You'll be a puddle.
Yeah, that was one of the toughest experiences
and
of my
how's
life.
this? Oh, you did Vipassana?
Yeah, I did Vipassana.
Retreat? 7 days?
10 days.
10 days?
2
That's a
years
long
ago.
one.
Yeah, so...
Did you lose it?
No,
Good.
I was...
Held it on the rails.
Yes, just. The toughest thing for me was the body, for me, because I've got bad knees, back,
Constant sitting.
and so you're in this like you got to be in that position, right?
Yeah.
And me being me, I was so you've for those of you that don't know, Vipassana is like a silent retreat. It's based on a Buddhist style meditation. So it's 11 and a half hours of meditation a day. 3 of them hours are compulsory inside the actual hall, and the others you can sit in the hall or you can go back to your room.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I'm here, I'm going to do it properly. So I spent the whole 11 and a half hours in the hall. I was like, I'm, you know what I mean? That's just what I do when I'm doing something like that.
Yeah,
So
I'm all in.
yeah, pretty much. So yeah, no talking, no, can't even look at anyone. You can't, no hand gestures, no nothing. It's just you and your mind for 10 days straight. You can't have any books, can't even write. You can't even write. Obviously some people would, but I was like, no, I'm going to do this properly.
Yeah.
And so being in that position, I think the first 2 hours, I was like, my knees are gone, my back. I'm struggling bad. I couldn't even sit still for 15 minutes without moving. Yeah, and after 2 hours, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm checking out. I'm like, if I'm feeling this sore now, what's gonna be tomorrow? I'll be sore tomorrow, and then I'll do it for 11 hours, and I was just like, I almost nearly did my own head in, right? Yeah. And then I was like, stop you a little bit, trying, all right?
Yeah,
It's been 2 hours. It's been 2 hours. Come on, man. And then, so the next day, surprisingly, I got a little bit better. I was like, okay, I'll work with it. And then I seen all these other guys go up beside me, and he went up and seen, like, the monk. So that's the only time you can talk. You get, like, questions where you can go up and ask him. And he went up, and he must have said, I've got a bad back or whatever. And they gave him, like, this little chair to sit on. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going up and asking. I was like, hey man, got some bad knees.
Hey man, I love it.
And I got it, and which I do. I was like, oh, I'm sore back. He looks at me, goes, okay, sit back down. And I was like, what the hell? Yeah. And then I got cranky. I was like, no, I'm going to show this guy. I'm going to do it. And then, so by the end of it, the last day, I was able to sit in that position and not move for the whole 2 hours. It was the longest session. It was 2 hours. Yeah. And so that was like a massive achievement for going from couldn't do more than 15 minutes on day one to doing 2 hours.
Yeah, that is massive.
Yeah, and by the end of it, I didn't even want to open up my phone. Like I was just like, I was just.
You feel how much it takes you away from yourself.
Oh, it's 100%. And the thoughts that go through your mind. Like I was at a point where you could feel the pain, but you could kind of like just let it go. That sounds crazy, but you could just be like, okay, cool, it's there. Leave it there and just keep doing the. Anyway, we've gone a bit off track, but do Vipassana anyway if you want to really test yourself. They do it at the Sunshine Coast and they do it in Melbourne.
I'm due for a retreat.
Yep. So you haven't done it before?
I've done. Also, the Zen version is Sesshin, which is really similar. It's just a little bit more stricter on the protocols. But versions of that, not as long. But what you do, the difference with Zen Sesshin, Japanese, is that you sit in the kind of you come to the hall and you do the session and it's very, very structured, and then you get the chance to do something called dokusan, which is you go to the roshi and then you ask questions about your practice, or you could be working on koans, which is a similar thing. Similar, but it's the Zen, and the Zen style is attractive to the Westerners because it's an intellectual way, it's an intellectual path to you can call it enlightenment, to wholeness, unity, love, whatever. But I found it a bit dry. I'm an expressive type, person. So the Zen style and the Buddhist style methods don't scratch the itch like other methods for me. But I've just been in this space for a long time, just practiced a lot of stuff. So
okay. So which ones did scratch the itch?
Interestingly enough, for me, the ones that truly. Okay, so to open someone's mind is actually not that hard. You can have someone with good trait openness and take them through some stuff to open their mind quite quickly. Opening someone's heart is a completely different story. And so...
definitely, 100%.
Yes, the Buddhist style retreats, Vipassana, and the Zen style sesshins are very much opening minds, which is cool. But opening heart is what I was looking for. I wanted the big kaboom. I didn't want to play the mind games. Yeah. Hindu methodology got me there.
Okay.
Devotional practice, which us Westerners do not like at all. It's really hard to wrap our ego around Hindu-style devotional practice, which is a loving practice. And it is devotion to the guru. So you become subordinate to the guru. and you love and love and love and love, and it starts to open up. And you, instead of having the big mind experience, which is still cool, the big mind experience is you can realize oneness through the intellect, but you're one with everything your intellect can handle, which is great. But it's nothing compared to the oneness you feel through the big heart, which is, oh my God, I am everything. Not I'm connected with everything. It's, oh my God, I am everything.
Yeah, okay.
And that moment's big and different, and you can't go back from it. And I got glimpses of, and I'm not some realized enlightened being at all. I got glimpses of that through more of a devotional practice, a devotional, yeah.
Okay, so if people wanted to look that up, where would they go?
Yeah, it's very, very hard to.
Because I want to look this up,
Yeah,
right? Because this is, I haven't really heard much
Yes.
about this, so I'm interested myself.
Yeah, well, I don't even know where you'd start, to be honest.
So, okay, so my head goes to one of the things that is a meditation's called like love and kindness meditation, where you
Yes.
kind of like close your eyes, right? And then you think of someone that you love, right? And then you send them like love and kindness, and you think of them like doing something really magical. They got smiles on their face, and you're like, oh, that's so nice, right? And then you go, okay, now think of like someone who's a work colleague, you don't love as much. Picture them doing
Yes.
something, like love and kindness, and then send them love and kindness, and then picture someone that you don't like, right? And now it starts to get difficult because you don't like this, and then you okay,
Yes.
send them and picture them being in a loving, and then I suppose the last one is do it to yourself, right? Because that's the most important one.
Yeah. See, that's getting there.
So
That's definitely
is that
getting
similar to what you, or
Yeah.
not really?
No, that's definitely well on the way. The loving kindness practice, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, made that really big. He's all about that loving kindness. Realizing that we're kind of off track there, but
That's okay. No, we can go.
Okay,
anywhere.
sweet,
Yeah,
sweet.
we can go anywhere.
so the loving kindness does cross over into the Hindu style method, but the Hindu style devotional method is about loving the guru to the point where you kind of merge with the guru's consciousness. And a guru is in India is really just a saintly person that their job is to love everyone, and that's their job.
Sounds like a sweet job.
Yeah, and their social role is saint. So their social role is to love everyone. It's not like the thing is with the bhakti, which is the Hindu kind of devotional stuff, very loving, very heart driven, is that these guys these saints and gurus don't put themselves above or below anyone else. It's just their job. It's like there's a train driver, there's an engineer, and then there's the guru. It's like they're not some special being.
Yeah, it's just his job.
They're just always to love, unconditional love. And so when you experience someone that sees you unconditionally, it melts you. It melts you into a whole new way to be. Because you're like, you see every bit of me, which is terrifying. It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
You see every single bit of me, and there's zero judgment. And you don't even know me. And when you can connect with someone in a way like that, it gives you a whole new model for life.
Okay, so did you go to India and meet someone like that?
No, I found this in a really odd way. Like I've just been, you could say, at some level you could say I've been a seeker of sorts.
Yeah.
But not by choice. I just suffered a lot and was sick of it. Literally.
Amen.
If I had my choice, I'd be like a pro athlete or like someone cool. I'm the least cool person on the planet. Like, I was interested in this stuff because conventional ways were not helping me.
No, that's correct, and that's similar to myself.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
And
I think the first couple of psychologists I went to, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, off topic, keep going.
Oh, no, mate, that's bang on topic. Like, what you begin to realize is, well, I have found great peace in understanding reality in terms of levels, not left or right. So once you can work with yourself deep enough to get out of the binary sense of life, like there's a wrong and a right and an up and down and all that jazz, you get off the linear train where life is this linear. There's this timeline and we've got to kind of live it and we make decisions, then we die, that's it. When you start to understand reality in levels, the whole thing changes. and you go, oh, hang on, I don't have to rush, I don't have to stress. Everything has its place at a certain level. Which ties me back into the Hindu stuff, is they understand this deeply. They understand.
That gives you a level of peace and compassion for yourself, right?
Bingo. Yep. Is there's different subcomponents of me that have different ideas that exist at different levels, and they're all relevant. They're all relevant, which means they're all necessary, which means they all deserve compassion no matter how broken they feel.
Cool. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and we can't get to the place of self-compassion without first understanding how to train our minds to be empty and lose all our mental models. If you've still got a mental model, it's very, very hard to be compassionate towards yourself. A mental model of how things should be, how your life should be, how your partner should be, what your work should be, am I making enough money? You know, the dramas of life. They're all models. We can't get to self-compassion unless we first extricate ourselves from a lot of our models.
Yeah, and it's very hard to do that in today's society with the news telling you, the radio's telling you, Instagram's telling you, Facebook's telling you, everyone's telling you what you should not be doing, right? Yeah. So I recommend everyone turn that TV off straight away.
For sure.
Radio, limit that, start, definitely
Well,
listening
it just doesn't allow you the chance to freely think.
Yeah.
Like, I've always had a big... some people call me rebellious. I don't think I am that rebellious.
Yeah. I think I'm similar in that aspect. So
I would say I value putting myself in an environment and a place and a lifestyle where I can freely think. And for whatever reason, that resonates as rebellious. Like, okay, I'm cool with that.
It would to the herd, which is doing not doing that. So to them it would look that way, but to me that seems quite normal. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Where were we? What were we talking about? Self-compassion, emptiness.
Yeah,
Hindu.
the guru. So how do we find a guru, or how do we find?
Yeah. That's where we're at. Yeah. I started getting interested in people like this through miracle stories. I just found them entertaining. And if you haven't heard a proper miracle story, they just rattle you in the best way. Yeah. Because there's no reason to lie about them.
No.
And our little Western mind just short circuits on miracle stories.
Okay, quickly. Best miracle story, go.
Okay. So I think the best one would be, this is one that comes to mind. There's a guru, he's passed away now. Neem Karoli Baba was his name. Maharaji is what they called him. And they couldn't, like, all he had was a water pot and a blanket. That's it. He didn't have anything. Yeah. And he would eat through people feeding him and devotionally giving him stuff to eat, and that's how he would eat. And he would just sit there all day. That's what he'd do. And he had this presence about him, and that's what unconditional love feels like. It's this presence that you can't, when you're in it, you can't. And the weird thing is that you love everyone when you're in it. Yeah. It's the coolest thing, and it blasts your mind into nothing. Yeah. And you begin to realize that a mind-based life is a life of separateness, and a heart-based life is a life of unity. And so we can't actually get to that unity that we all, in the heavens feel like when we're doing it through here. So this is the miracle story. This guru is a bit of a loose unit, just does what he wants. His blanket just falls off. Like, he's got not a care in the world. His job is to love people. Walks down the street and it goes into this barber shop, hairdresser, whatever. This is in India. And everywhere he goes, people give him free stuff because he's a saint. That's what you do. So he walks in and the barber is wrapped, like, Maharaji, you're here, like, free everything. What do you want? Rubbing his feet, massaging him, and starts shaving his beard and gets halfway, right? So he gets halfway. This is a true story, by the way. Like, it's every time I tell him, So he's got half a beard, and the barber said, look, I haven't seen my son in 2 years. I don't know where he is. I'm struggling with my faith that he's still alive. Maharaji's, I'm just like taking it on board. And he's still shaving, and he gets about half his beard done. And he goes, I'll be back. I'm just going to go to the toilet. So the Saint Maharaji gets up, goes to the toilet, comes back, And he goes, your son will be here in 2 days. It's fine. Relax. And the guy's like, yeah, okay. Like, I haven't seen him in 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's the story. So finishes his bid, walks out. And so the story goes, the son rocks up at the barber shop and runs in panic going, what's going on, Dad? Like, I've just got a job at a hotel. I'm managing a hotel 2 hours away. I'm all good. And he goes, why did you send a guy with a half-shaved beard to come tell me? Like, it's just odd. He come in with a towel around his head, he half-shaved beard, and then he said, you got to go see your dad, and then left again.
What?
Exactly. Now, you got two options now, right? You either put that in the fictional Disney bucket of, oh yeah, or you play with it and go, what if? You know?
Yeah.
Why would someone lie? And by the way, there's so many of those stories.
Yeah.
So many of those stories. Another one, when the reason why he got his name, Neem Karoli Baba, is because when he was young, he felt like he'd never fit in anywhere. So he got on a train and, he tried to get on a train. They wouldn't let him on because he didn't have any money. And so he kind of like swindled them and said he was going to pay at the next stop or whatever and kind of bluffed his way onto the train. They got to a village called Neem Karoli and the ticketers come up and said, we're kicking you off here. You haven't paid. And he's like, all right, no worries. So he gets off the train stops working. He just sits down there and waits. And everyone's freaking out, panicking. These Indian trains are mental.
Yeah.
And people yell out, let the saint back on, let the saint back on. And he walks on and he goes, what, you think I'm going to be able to start this train? Like, you guys are crazy. Sits back down. Train starts.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, I'm very new to like this. So, how do you become a saint? Like, so what prerequisites or what do you have to do? Or like, surely you can't just be like, I'm gonna become a saint and I'm a saint, right? So, how do you have what?
Bro, that's above my pay grade.
You're supposed to know these questions, right?
We
What did I bring you on
this.
for?
What do you said you knew the answer. Yeah, no, that's definitely something I would feel very unconfident in speaking about.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's awesome. I love that type of stuff.
Yes,
And
hits you in the heart, right? Like that's the difference.
definitely. And there's heaps of stories, like not with the Indian version, but of just people, being able to, they go and see and the cancer's gone or something
Exactly.
it's unexplainable. So there is other forces, other things that. And this is what it really frustrates me, like when I try to talk to someone about something and they're like, oh, that's not very science-based, right? And I'm like, I'm going to fucking wring your neck right now because in the history of the world, when has science been right? Or when have we seen science go, oh, we've actually fucked up there and we're getting closer to being right, but we're never right. Is that, don't you reckon? Like, so...
Yeah, it depends what you mean by right. Like...
Well... Yeah, okay, that's another hole. Okay.
It is. Whether it's relative or absolute, or, we can go down that rabbit hole if you want.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, tell me
Where do you go after miracles, right? I'm waiting, like, how's he going to handle this?
That is a good question. I want to go into a little bit about your journey. I know, are you okay to talk about?
Hey, far away. Open book.
So it's in your book.
Anything.
So if it's in your book, and so
If it's in the book, then
obviously you went through a period where you were at next level, and you start to realize, hey, look, this isn't me. Yeah. So explain that through, and then like how you were able to sort of come out the other side, and then suppose live more true to yourself. I suppose I remember we were talking. I remember. Or at next level, and we're talking something about snowboarding come up, and you're like, "Oh, I'd love to get snowboarding, but
and you picked it,
and you're like, "Oh, but I'm trying to like change the world with this next level," and I'm like, "Mm-mm." As soon as I seen that, I was like, "Nope, this is not what he should be doing. This is," and it was funny how I picked up on that, and then moments later, you got it right. Yes. Okay. So next level was great for me early on. So my business partner at the time, Tim, we had a working relationship at the start,
he was helping me out with some business stuff and some mentoring, and that merged really quickly into a business relationship. We didn't do much, I would say, formal client mentor stuff before it turned into something that we worked on together. I had a bit of a reputation in the fitness industry. I had some people following me, enough of an audience, you could say, to start something. So Tim come in, and we both gave a presentation, and everyone's like, that was great. And by the way, this was like 6 years ago, before personal development was a cultural conversation. That's when we started.
Yeah.
So it was very oddball at the time. Like, it was happening, but it wasn't. There was no one out there really preaching it, And I didn't know what I was doing, like, at all. And I didn't want to do that. I was happy being the gym guy. I was 105 kilos, juicy. All I wanted to do was pick up heavy things. It was fine. Life was good.
Yeah.
And the more and more I'd become open to this kind of stuff, the more and more I could see the value in it for myself and others, and started playing with it. I just started fiddling with things. And Tim one day said, look, I want you to come do this thing with me full time. And I was like, no, it's not my thing. And then I remember him going to Sydney and kind of just threw me in the deep end. He's like, I'm going to Sydney for the weekend. I've got a weekend full of rooms and you're doing them. And I was like, no, I'm not. How about that?
Yeah.
Like, I was fine with doing presentations at school and uni and stuff like that. But I'm like, these are business owners that are paying you money. I'm a nobody. I'm the big juicy gym guy. Like, can I just be that? And he was like, look, you're the only one I reckon you could pull this off. And I have to go to Sydney for this opportunity. Now, I'm still not sure whether he actually went to Sydney and whether it was work or whether he just kind of threw me in the deep end.
Tim would be pretty hard to say no to as well.
He is a very charming guy. Yeah. And so I fronted up. I did the weekend. I was nervous as hell. And all I did was kind of share stories about how I was doing business at the time. And they seemed to like it. They liked it enough where it wasn't a failure. It wasn't some hit success. But they liked it enough where it wasn't a failure. And enough for me to go, maybe there is something in this for me. I felt comfortable enough in front of people. That was no issue. Tim trusted me. I was like, maybe I'll give this thing a crack. And I did. I was feeling a little bit torn with the gym identity. Hey, Nat, what do you do? I own a gym. A little bit of it just didn't feel right. So maybe this is a pathway out of here. And so that's what led me down there. And it was great for 3 years. It was fine. But we had early success. And if you've had early success, it's fucking dangerous. Early success is dangerous because you start a business with really good intentions. You're really open. You have no entitlements. You have no expectations. You're really just there to serve. When things go well, it's amazing. You sign your first big retainer sort of corporate client, and that's amazing. Everything's amazing. Everything's like, holy shit, this is working. Yeah. And then you get really, really invested, and then all of the stuff that makes it work goes to shit. And then you start expectations. You have entitlements, and you get into barneys with clients, and you become unclear in your expectations, and all the stuff that was kind of carrying you tends to go to the wayside. Well, it did for me. It did for us, and we developed an ego, a business ego, and it was stupid. And I was trying my best to ground the whole operation. Like, it was getting big. It was getting out of hand. Not out of hand. It was. We had some traction. We had a lot of people that knew who we were. And I was trying to ground this thing, like, it's about the people. Like, it's about, being relatable. I wanted to be relatable. There you go. I was trying to ground it and be relatable. And I was getting criticized for that because I wasn't pushing them enough. I wasn't, pumping them up enough. I wasn't doing that stuff. And I folded. I can honestly say I folded and went, maybe I'm doing this wrong then. I'll go back to doing the, intense kind of pushing people, and the more I did that, the more unwell I got.
Listen to your body, right?
Man, like, I wanted to keep Tim happy, so it was majority his company, so it was kind of his way. That's cool. That's what I signed up for. Yeah. So I tried to do it his way, but I felt this natural thing. I wanted to ground everything, and he didn't like that. So I just kept adjusting me to suit the company. Because I thought that's what I wanted to do, the best for the organization. Like, I was really invested. Yeah, yeah. But the more I changed who I was to try and fit what this company wanted me to be, I ended up really unwell by the end of it. Like, psychologically very, very unwell. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep up with the demands or the clients or the responsibility. And, I had 10% of the company, so that was being held over my head. Like, hey, you're a director, you've got to do this. And I was unwell, I was being pushed, and it all just spilled over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got so confused in my soul, like what I was, who I was. I had no, like, I'd lost all my business before that from impulsivity, trying to sell it too fast. I'd lost my car, lost a lot of money, and I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the valley. No TV, no internet, nothing, just meditating 4 hours a day, like trying to get my shit together, trying to sort my act out, trying to build this company by being someone that I wasn't. And so that was a combination for a disaster. And it was a disaster. Like, I just had breakdown after breakdown, and it got so bad that one day I was maybe a little discretion here about mental health stuff, because this is where we're going. One day I was driving to work. This is in the peak of it, and I was still managing, trying to keep my shit together, just going to work, like doing clients and just pumping the coffee just to try and keep, level. One day I was driving to work, and I remember I had a 9 o'clock client on the phone. That was sweet, and it was hot, and I fucking get really stressed out in the heat. Finished the 9 o'clock client, lost track of time, realised I was going to go over for my 10:15. So there's the first little stressful feeling. Okay, my 10:15 is going to be late. That's annoying. Message him, hey dude, going to be late, just let you know. His response wasn't that favourable. It wasn't like, yeah bro, no worries. It was like, okay, make sure we get everything done. Like, it was just a very jarring response.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to be late. I've pissed someone off. I'm a bit stressed. My fiance at the time was in America traveling by herself, and I didn't take that very well. I struggled with that, actually. And then she popped up on social media having a night out. And it was that I miss you, and I'm scared, and the stress and the heat. And I was really unwell, and it tipped me over. It was just a combination of factors. In any other day, that's normal stress.
Yeah.
For me, where I was at, that tipped me over the edge into this uncontrollable scream. I locked myself in my car and just screamed and screamed and screamed. And I was just experiencing this inner torture. Like, my awareness was so irritating, it was killing me. Like, it was so hard to describe. It felt like I was being ripped apart from the inside. And there was so much despair and so much torture that my only thing I could think about was go to nature. It's the only thing I could think about. So I'm trying to drive while I'm howling. I'm howling, and I'm crying, and I can't see, and I'm going like 20 k's an hour. And I find this park, and I pull over, and I sit on, and I laid on this rock and just prayed. I just prayed, like, whatever this is, either end me now or give me some kind of answer. Otherwise, I'm just going to end it myself. And it was so intense that the next obvious step was the suicide step was so obvious to me that it was honestly just another step on the road. And it was this, I was helpless, but I was scared, but I felt tortured. I felt broken. I was just broken. And so I'm sitting there in the park, and I'm laying on this rock just praying, crying, and it's just nothing is relieving me. Nothing is toning it down. It's just sharper and more intense and sharper and more intense. I felt like I was dying. And it's the first time in my life I grabbed a stick and I just sunk it into my shoulder. I just sunk into my shoulder. And it was so relieving. The physical pain was a relief compared to the psychological pain of that inner disconnection that is so torturous. Physical pain is actually a relief. And it was that moment of realization when I pulled it out. I was like, I've just self-harmed. And I had enough awareness in that moment to go, you've crossed a personal line, you've just self-harmed, you've got to take yourself to the hospital. Like, you just got to get there. So I tried to call my fiance's mum. She wasn't picking up. I tried to go, and I'm shaking and wailing. It was a 3-hour ordeal of just fully out of control. Got to the ER, but I was in my suit, by the way. I was in a full suit. I walked into RBH ER, and everyone around me is like, there's some drug addicts, there's people with real injuries, and then I walk in and feel guilty because, like, I'm a respectable person. I've got my suit on, and I'm walking and just going, hey, someone please fucking help me. Yeah. And so I sit down, and this moment, I wish I could remember this nurse's name because this was important. I sat down, and a nurse that wasn't at the ER counter saw me and walked over to me. And she wasn't part of the usual process. She saw me, she sat down, she's like, what's going on? And I was like, I honestly have no idea. I can't tell you. Nothing's wrong. something's deeply wrong, but nothing's wrong. And
Her awareness to see that must have been amazing.
Yeah. So this one nurse, and I can't remember this. She's about my height, blonde bob haircut. That's all I remember through my. She just sat down next to me, and she just went, "Yeah," like she just was there with me. And it was such a powerful moment that just took the edge off everything. And I wish I could remember names. She walked me through a side door and just sat me in a chair, gave me a glass of water, and she's like, "We're going to be with you in a moment." And that was really impactful. Some reason she saw the situation. And so
that's divine timing there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And she didn't need to say anything. She just spotted it, walked me out. Yeah, it was great. But then after that is where it just, just gets worse. Like, you go in, doctor's like, "What's going on?" Like, "Oh, mate, I don't know. Like, isn't that your job?"
Yeah.
He's like, are you suicidal? I'm like, "What? I don't know what that means." Like, yes, but no. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I would say I am suicidal right now. Am I going to do it? No. And he's like, "Okay, we'll just, Valium, bang."
Yeah, that frustrates. Yeah, anyway.
3 Valium, and I just I literally felt myself dissociate. Like, I felt the Valium hit, and I felt myself dissociate from my body. And I was like, because of that's what I'm trained in too. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm dissociating," and I didn't even care. And I know the damage of what dissociation does, but my body was in so much disarray that I was like, "I'm just going to allow this dissociation." So I just went hunk and just knocked myself out.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a moment where I'm like, the only thing I know that is true, the only thing that I know that is true is I can't be in next level anymore. That's the only thing I knew. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I knew. What was true. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have an income plan. I didn't have any savings. I put it all into the business. Everything. All I knew is I loved my fiance. We were living at her parents' place, and I can't be in this company. And that's all the data I had to go off that I was sure about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hectic.
Yeah. So made the call, and it just didn't go down well.
No, I couldn't imagine. So I'll let you keep going,
Far
but
away.
just something that I'd like to just let people know is, Nat is someone that knows a lot about psychology, a lot about heaps of stuff. That's why he's on the show, right? But for someone like yourself, and for me, we can know all the stuff, but we still struggle, right? We still got stuff and people look to us and just sometimes they look to me and go, "Oh, your life must be amazing, right?" And I'm just like, fuck no.
Yeah.
I'm still a struggle. I still, we still have these things stop. And I think that's real important. I know when I did struggle with Tim a little bit with that, because he just seemed to be on this level where I just didn't think I could ever get to, right?
Yeah.
And I couldn't relate to that. And I think something that I think is important, if you are a coach or if you are someone that helps people, whatever, just be related, and let them know that, we fucking struggle too. We've got stuff, you know what I mean? It wasn't too long ago I called you and I was not in a good place. You know what I mean? And I think the people that want to help people actually struggle more, because we know what it's like to go through that shit. So we, we probably struggle just as much, if not more than the people, you know what I mean? So I just want to let people know that. So
mate, that's bang on. When someone said, "Oh, no, you really you got to love what you do and you're clearly really passionate about it," I'm like, I'm not sure. I more feel what I do is a stewardship and a responsibility. If I had my choice, I'd be a pro surfer or a pro golfer.
Right. Jack Johnson, sing pro surfer.
Exactly.
What more do you want?
Exactly, right. That's what I want.
God, why did you not give me that?
Yeah. That's what I want, but that's not what I do.
Yeah.
So it does feel a little different for me, and it does feel a little different in terms of career, because it's not really. I wouldn't say I have an established career, but it's been very odd. It's been a very odd unfolding of events. There's no way I could have designed it,
Yeah.
No way. So.
Do you think, now, on reflection, can you, connect the dots and, is there this then related to it, and does that then give you faith for the future?
Yes.
To know, for me, it does. Every time something that you're like, how the fuck did this happen? You know what I mean? And I'm like, hang on a minute. Every time this happened in my life, something has happened, and that's, you know what I mean? And then I suppose it's a way for you to be a bit more at peace and just have a bit more faith and go, okay, look, you know, what does I need to learn? What is it that I'm not getting? And, you know, how's this going to help me grow to whatever? And asking them sort of questions can defer your focus, I suppose, from, you know, what the fuck's going on to, make it the journey a little bit easier. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but
I have a real deep desire to be incredibly private. My ideal is privacy and isolation, and I just can't do it. Like, it's so strange.
Why can't you do this and that?
Well, because I feel a responsibility. I almost feel like a karmic responsibility to go do what I do, and really work with people that come into my world and work with them in a totally unique way, which sometimes puts me in the spotlight. And I can't. It's a conundrum I've had for a very, very long time. Is I don't know how to handle the spotlight, or even if I want it, freaks me out. And I struggle with it a lot. Like, there'll be times after Next Level, you've been to some events. They weren't massive, but they were massive enough to be an event. 120 people, the biggest one was 150. And every single time, like, whether I did the opening or some sections in it or whatever, the backlash after that was people would come up to you and they'd corner you, you know, and they would ask you questions, and I would panic. Like, massively panic. I would feel like I'm trapped again, and I'd have to, like, I'd set up, you know, text messages with my fiance, like, hey, like, get me out of here. Like, you need to come save me. I would totally panic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's still a conundrum.
Okay. So let's go back into some mystical stuff.
Sure.
Psychedelics.
Yeah. Yep.
Give me, I suppose, have you looked much into the studies and stuff like that? I know for me it's something that I've used myself. Mushrooms, I think, are amazing if they're done right, in the right place, the right setting, the right people, the right intention. And I've experienced some of the most profound, I think, experiences I've had would be on mushrooms. And that moment when you said, that from the heart, that one, like, I felt that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's a good.
This is it.
This
This is it. I want to be here forever.
Yeah.
And you wake up the next day and go, like, you have that remnants of it, right? So you can't go back.
Yeah.
But you've
got the remnants. Yeah, it's such a good way.
But it's not as profound as,
you
know, and you're like, but the beauty of it, right, is, like, your brain did that.
Yeah.
Like, the mushrooms did whatever, but your brain did that, right? So it can do that with the mushrooms, right? It has to, because it's got the mechanisms or the chemical or whatever. It can do that, I believe.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? Nah. You said you could answer this one.
I lean towards the pessimistic side of the psychedelic conversation, only because I can see it happening already, and I'm sure you can too, which is the things that are on the edge of culture that tend to get sucked into the middle of the culture really quickly. This is like anything. Crypto's probably a good example as well. Fringes. As soon as it hits, it gets sucked into the middle, and now it's normal conversation. And it happens so damn fast.
Yeah, ayahuasca is a big one.
Ayahuasca is a big one. It was relatively unknown not that long ago. It was a fringy type thing. And then once it hits and people catch on, it gets sucked into the center of the culture really, really quickly. The faster people start talking about it, the more it gets massively misunderstood, misused,
diluted.
Yes, and it becomes more of you can even tell.
It becomes a way for people to make money, not for people to help.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of it
crypto
too.
Crypto is very. There's that many scams out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to distinguish unless if you know.
Yes.
What to look for. And I suppose, I think the ayahuasca, I haven't done it myself. I've been wanting to do it for like 3 years. But
that's my favourite.
Something always happens. So it's like, hey, look, it's not supposed to happen yet or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I've had some really great experiences with mushrooms, so I'm happy to stick with that for now. But if an opportunity arises, then but The thing I found is it almost, you talk to people that are in the ayahuasca community or whatever, and the lady, I'm not going to mention her name, but the lady that I would go to, she's from Brazil. Like
No, call her out. Let's fucking blast her. Let's call
no,
her.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm
and
kidding.
this isn't a good way. This is
Yeah,
not in a
yeah,
bad
yeah,
way.
yeah.
So her grandfather was a shaman, her dad's a shaman, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, and so
Lineage.
she's got that sort of deep sense of, so she does it the right way, and there's you've got to be invited, and you've got to know her for a certain amount of time, and she's got to make sure you all that type of stuff, which is fine. But you see all these people that are popping up, right? It's like, oh, I'm running ayahuasca. Like, how long have you been doing? Oh, well, 2 years ago I did it, and it was amazing. So now I'm running these retreats, right?
I was
I'm
laying
like,
bricks 2 years ago.
Which I don't, and then for me, it almost becomes like an ego kind of thing. They've got this.
You got it.
And they are misusing their power, their whatever. And
it comes with a certain sense of power.
Yeah, and I know I just speak to a good friend, Ange, and she's had so many people that have come to her after it having gone to someone that does not, and it's made them worse, right? Because they've had, and she's now trying to battle these people, and
put them back together
after their experience. So, like I said, when that massive inrush, and there's just so many people wanting it, and then not enough people with the experience and the knowledge and the heritage there. I just think, like I said, it becomes like a disaster. That's why, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't done it for 3 years, because I've been asked heaps of times with people, but I haven't found someone that I've gone, okay, look, you've got enough of the, I suppose, the heritage or whatever. I think, and maybe that's because of the person that I know is so deeply into it. I feel like there's just no one that can compare, which I don't think is right either. But so anyway, that's my conundrum. We'll put that aside. But that's...
No, you're onto it. It's in the years that I've been floating around that scene, the one thing that I've seen repeatedly is that they will work to the level in which you work them pre and post. So, ayahuasca is a favorite of mine. For whatever reason, that plant I enjoy it and it enjoys me. I have a great time. Predominantly fun.
Yep.
It doesn't, people have got to be really careful not to pedestal these plants into something that they're not. Because you can see it right now is that people are chomping at the bit to share their psychedelic story.
Mm.
And you can see it, I can see it starting to lose its essence of what it's all about. Here's an example. I watched people, I think I had about 12 people in the last ceremony that I went to. And I would say I'm quite, it's just been years of working with people, quite tuned with where people are at.
Mm.
And I could go around the circle and hear someone talk, and I know they're only interpreting their experience of the psychedelic through the level that they've achieved, which is unfortunate, because when you do the personal, private, continuous work on yourself, then you can have a totally new experience using psychedelic. And I remember someone saying to me, going, "Oh, look, make sure that when you get out of there, you write everything down and you integrate everything." And they had this, laundry list of things to do. Because when you get out of it, you won't remember it. I remember incredible details of every time I've used psychedelics. Like, I can access the memory like this. Mm. And I think it comes down to, and this, again, is going to be an unpopular view, but we have to develop our egos, not get rid of them.
Yeah.
The stronger your ego is developed, the more awake and aware and responsible you are inside the psychedelic experience. But people are trying to use these things to wipe out their ego. Why do you think you can't remember anything?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know a few people where they can't remember it, and I'm the same as you. I can definitely remember everything, and even to the point, for me, so, and this is why I think mushrooms, well, for me, it's so powerful, and I can't fuck it up, is because I've been, I went to a stage where, I was taking it once a month, you know what I mean? Yep. Or even once every 2 weeks, and then I had, this mushroom, and it kicked my ass.
Nailed
it was like, what the fuck?
What are you doing?
I'm not giving you anything else.
Yeah.
You didn't do nothing from last time.
Bingo.
Like you didn't learn, or you haven't worked on, or whatever. Like you're just doing it for fun, you know. And I was like,
Yep.
fuck, it just shocked me, and I was like,
Exactly.
and then I didn't touch it for probably 4 or 5 months.
Mate,
You know what I mean?
I've seen this. Sorry, continue.
And that's when I realised, I mean, if you do it the right way, and and then it almost will tell you if you're misusing it, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's ever only going to happen if you're doing it the right way, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If your intention is right, I suppose. And I could be wrong, but that was my experience. It knew when I was going too far with it.
Yeah.
And it was like, it kicked my ass. It was like, nope, get the fuck out of here. And the next time was 4 months later, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Here's one for you. So, people tend to personify these psychedelics and make them into entities, and make them into other than I. And that what tends this is a spin out, but what people tend to do is they tend to psychodynamically create a relationship with this plant through the same assumptions of how they relate to themselves and or other people. So let's just say someone goes into a psychedelic experience because they've struggled in relationships. What I've seen more often than not is they actually transfer the dysfunctional relationship where they had with their ex onto the plant. And so they form a reliance on the plant. And then it might work once or twice. And then they form the same attached reliance to the plant, of which now most people call the medicine. And then it nails them. It absolutely slaps them. And then they do the complete 180 and go, oh, they're bullshit, they're rubbish, So they're literally replicating the dynamics of relationship with the personified plant.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you're like, you're not doing the thing here. You're not learning at all.
No.
You're literally trying to get someone else to solve your problems, like your last relationship.
Bang.
Yeah.
Gem right there. All right, write that one down. That's amazing. Yeah, that's. I'm gonna be pondering on that myself.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really interesting.
It's a cop out, is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So
Over to you, Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. I need to put that aside and think about that, reflect on that tomorrow, and not right now, Ryan. We're into something. Yeah. So do you mind talking about your experience with ayahuasca?
No, go. No worries. The first time was really, really rugged, but in a good way. I didn't really have expectations. I was very, very open, very. I have to keep myself in check in those circumstances because I can get a bit know-it-all, and it's not nice. And I know when I'm there, and it doesn't feel flowy. And the weird thing, two stories. The weird thing is most of my day I'm going into situations where people look to me, and so I've got to check myself all the time when I'm going into other circumstances that are social. I need to downplay because I'm not that person. I have to really check myself at the door, kind of thing. And I was really wary of that for the first time. Like, Nat, just calm down, be here for you. You can take a break. You don't need to be with clients or with businesses or whatever. You can actually just be here for you. And that was really nice. First of all, that was awesome. But the thing where I got it wrong was I'm really sensitive to all substance, everything. I'm so sensitive, bro. It doesn't take much.
Yeah, even caffeine. Yeah.
Exactly. I only have a couple of coffees a week because it just cooks me.
Yeah.
And so the rape, you familiar with rape, the tobacco, the powdered tobacco?
Rape, yep.
Yeah, rape. It nailed me. It gave me flu-like symptoms for about 2 hours.
Really?
Everyone was like, bang, hit, tap on the back of the head, it's fine, clears the system. And I like the fact that they used that plant to try and get you into yourself because it's so extreme.
Yeah.
But
is that the first time you had hape was before ayahuasca?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, you really okay. So keep going.
Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I'll have it. I want to do the full experience. But I got sweaty and flu-like symptoms for like 2 hours. and they've already done the first round of ayahuasca before I could recover. So everyone was kind of starting the process, and I was like, okay, well, I got up for the second round. That was when I started. And so the combination of like coming out of like a flu-like situation and then this powerful plant coming on board was what it felt like for me. It was really short and sharp. So I didn't get the full kind of 8-9 hours. I kind of got about 4 in the middle.
Mm.
And I was still, as the time the third round come around, the shaman was like, it's not for you. Like, you need to deal with this. And I was like...
That was good. That's good that they had that awareness.
Yeah, but I was like, bro, you gave me the flu. You gave me COVID. And now... but yeah, it was still really, really good. Even though it was shorter window, it was still really, really good. A lot of purging. And a lot of... The two experiences I had were very much about... I kept getting in touch with very, very... you could say well-known figures. A lot of Carl Jung in my experiences. A lot of Hindu mythology like Hanuman and Ram, these big kind of like mystical figures. Friedrich Nietzsche, Hitler, these big figures were in my experiences. I truly felt that I didn't get a personal ayahuasca experience, I got a collective ayahuasca experience. Wars, there was a lot of wars, there was a lot of bloodshed, there was a lot of anarchy, there was a lot of... I got a lot of social stuff in my ayahuasca journey, whatever that means.
So how did you internalize that, or what did that...
Bro, I had
what
no
meaning
idea.
did that give? No,
no idea. Like,
you just placed that over there. And
I mean, the one thing that stood out, which was quite clear, which was really strange, was these rivers of blood. Just, this is going to be pretty intense, but it was, we'll just play with it. Rivers of blood, and the scene was World War II, and for whatever reason I knew it was World War II, and I was just kind of observing these war fields, and there's blood everywhere. And for whatever reason, I got the message that this was a godless war, and a godless war was a war that we lost religion in that war. That's why World War II was so brutal, because it was mechanical. It was war machine versus war machine, and the human spirit meant nothing. All wars before that, people would carry Bibles into battle. They would pray for the dead. They would eat ceremony. They would put their guns down. They'd like clock off. In World War I, the people would clock off.
Yeah.
All right, time to go. Put guns down.
Yeah, and they'd like have dinner
Totally,
and stuff with their enemies, right? Yeah.
And they'd be like, fire away, and they'd shoot over their enemies' heads. And for whatever reason, the contrast in my ayahuasca journey was about World War II, and it was complete bloodshed, because it was godless. And all I could take out of that was, if you lose faith, there's bloodshed. It's just everything ends in destruction if you lose a sense of faith. And so I was, I'm trying to manage these things, and I've got other people around me like, just, it's not a judgment, but it's just different.
Yeah.
I just experienced it very, very different. People had a very common experience. Like, I felt love, I felt connected to my ex or someone I lost, or I just need to look after myself better. Very compassionate, personal messages. Mine was wild, very social.
I guess, like for me, when I think about that, like someone that isn't, I suppose, as aware as, for lack of a better word, as what you are, would take that experience as being horrible, right? They'd be like, what? And they wouldn't have got the message that you've got, right?
Yes.
So they would be like,
that's a good point.
I had the fucking worst experience, man. There was like guns, people killing each other, like blah, blah, blah. Where you had that kind of, let's sit back and we'll, and I suppose that was why you got that, and where sort of, you probably didn't need that, the love and the whatever. Maybe that was way more important for where you are, where you were in your journey or whatever.
I think you're bang on there.
I think that's what I love about the mush or whatever you use. If it'll, a lot of people I've heard say their worst experience was their best experience, right? Because it showed them something. One story I heard from a guy, he went there and he was like, I want to beat my anger.
Yeah.
So he reckons for 8 hours, every time he thought about anger, he felt the anger in his, body, and it was going through his veins, and it was poison. It was killing him, right?
Wow.
So every time he thought about anger, he just
had the visceral
yeah,
experience.
like, and just thought, I'm dying for 8 hours, right? And he come out, he's like, I can't be angry now, like, because I know it's poison. It kills my body.
I now know. I now have felt the experience that hatred and anger hurts me.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, and he's like, so it was the worst experience of my life. But he goes, I fucking never have been angry since. And I was like, wow, like, that's fucking, that's incredible.
That's unreal. Yeah, that's so good.
So that to me is something. Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, wow. And I know, like, some of my, I wouldn't call them bad experiences. Yeah, they definitely were. They're very powerful. So I definitely recommend, if anyone out there is wanting to do these, try and do it with someone that's experienced, or try and do it with someone that's going to create a good space.
Yeah.
Don't just sort of do it with willy-nilly, because they are very powerful and they can take you to some awesome places. But
yeah, for sure. There are. I think they're actually quite inconsequential without other things around them, like continued introspective effort. It's good meditation practice, continual powerful conversations. Like, them on their own, if you think that's going to be the way out, it just won't be.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no shortcuts.
No.
There's no shortcuts. And they can be a really, really beautiful part of the process and the method, but they're not the way, I don't think.
No.
I actually think they've already done what they need to do. I truly actually think that psychedelics have already proven their point, and now we just have to learn them better. I don't think they're going to show us anything more magical and mystical. I think they've done their party piece. We just have to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I know, I don't know why this popped up, but I know when you're saying before, like, one of the things you did in one of your worst periods is, like, you prayed to God, right?
Totally.
And I can relate to that. That was one of the things that I did when I was going to check out. And so I was weird. I don't know what it was. Both my parents are atheists, never went to church my entire life. But as a 6-year-old kid, I prayed to God every night. I didn't know why. I just didn't, I don't know. And my parents were like, what the fuck's wrong with this kid? What I mean? I didn't know. And, like, I wouldn't call myself religious. I think there's something else out there. I just don't know what it is. And I think, I'd call myself omniism would be something that I would label myself as. I think there's truth in all religion, but it's not one religion is truth, right?
Yeah.
So I think all religions capture what God is trying to portray, but I don't think, like, when it comes down, like, it's been thousands of years. I think it's just like chop change. But I think that the message is always the same, right? It's just love and so. That's, I don't know why I brought that up. That just came into my head. So
Well, I mean, the religious experience is something that I think we've impoverished accidentally, which is funny. Like, we'll talk about drugs for a little bit and why these things start to happen. What do you think the drug is of the lower class? The lower class, what's their drug of choice?
Would have to be, well, I don't know, it'd be marijuana, if you count that. I don't really count that as a drug anymore, but... the street drug, narcotics. Well, what's the narcotic of the lower class? It would be heroin or ice, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the lower class is so disenfranchised that they need a substance that gives them an entirely new reality. It puts them into an entirely new reality. And so price of drugs is not mediated by the production. Price of drugs is mediated by the class that use them. What do you think the drugs are of the middle class?
Will be ecstasy, I suppose.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And cocaine. They're typically two middle class drugs. Is because we were told, right, that the middle class is going to give us everything that we want. Success, money, freedom, happiness, peace. Guess what? It doesn't.
No.
So that's why there's a rampant middle-class drug situation with MDMA and cocaine.
I don't know if you bought cocaine lately, but I wouldn't call that middle class. It's quite expensive.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, you've got to be middle upper now. It's exactly. Like, it's just out of control. But we're trying to still believe in the middle class way, but we're searching for something else because we're not satisfied. And the upper class gets a bit weird and a bit conspiratorial, so I don't want to go there. But okay, well, where does the psychedelics fit into all this? Or they're a replacement for the impoverished religious aspect that we all need, but are too scared to go back to religion. So we all have a religious impulse, all of us.
See, and this is the second time something you've said brings up that freaking book, the Celestine Prophecy.
Okay, yeah.
That book did something to me. So if you want a good book,
it's a powerful little sucker, that one.
It is.
It's a great entry point.
It is. It is a good book. Anyway, it's off topic, but yeah. So that's interesting. I think, I do believe that
we all have
we do
aching
need
for
to
it.
go back for. I don't know how to verbalize it. We do need to take a step back in believing in something, but I don't think religion is quite the answer. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
Go back to self, I suppose. But
Yeah.
Not sure quite. Yeah, you could maybe explain what I'm trying to say. But do you know where I'm trying to go?
Yeah, I do know where you're trying to go, and there's a few, definitely a few different threads. Like, so the first question I ask myself is, why do we reminisce and look back into our archaic times as if we're missing something that they had? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, we all kind of romanticize about the little cottage on the farm, and we, farm everything, get our chickens, and it's all very beautiful and nice. There was some kind of archaic wholeness that a simpler reality had that we're all yearning for. And what we got to be careful of is people confusing. Okay, so we'll backtrack, but they're all tied in. We're obsessed with our thinking mind, which is a love child of our intellect.
Yep.
The love child of those two things is science and tech in the objective world. And so because we're completely in love with our intellects, we think that technological advance is going to make things better. No one says that. It's just going to make it more advanced. Mike can go for it.
And one thing that really hit home for me is when you look at technology and the way it moves forward, is it's supposed to make our life easier, right?
Yeah.
But all it's doing is making people more money, right? We could use technology to make our lives easier and keep sort of their money that it makes the same, but we don't. Technology is a way for people to make more money. It's not making our lives easier at all. And that's where I think the problem lies. If we had people in business that were like, okay, how can we make the collective easier by using technology? Like, where do you think we'd be right now?
Yeah, exactly. It's not about making lives easier. It's about making money. And
so how do we change that?
Oh, mate, that is. Well, look, we're not going to be able to change it by. Here's one thing I'm sure of: we're not going to be able to change it by constantly being obsessed with changing the external world, because the external world is complexity. It's objective complexity, and that is only growing. Right, that ship has sailed. External complexity is only going to get more complex.
Yeah.
Which means our life will get fuller, as we've all experienced. We're old enough now to experience how full life gets without even trying. You've just got more stuff to manage. That is going to continue, right? External complexity is going to continue. No doubt. The only real viable solution that I see is realizing the external world is good for fulfillment, but it's terrible for freedom.
Yeah.
And if we can start to manage these two things in a very sophisticated way, we have a real chance I think we have a real chance at learning to live and love better in crazy technological complexity. But it's going to come down to when you go in and sit and settle and quiet down, that's where freedom is. But you have this funny thing, Ryan, where 2,000 years, the freedom yogis were experiencing 2,000 years ago is the same freedom we'll experience right now. But the complexity in the external world is totally different. So, right, the ratio of fullness to freedom is way out of whack. We're so full, we're overflowing full, but we're not free at all.
Yeah.
We can't stop the overflowing fullness and complexity, but we can balance it with internal freedom. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, I I know you talked a little bit about your meditation journey and how it almost became an escape for you. So
Yeah.
I suppose because it's something that I do and I love to do, and I think it balances me out through. Like I notice from my practices and as good as what it should be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, tighten your game up, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
Sort it out.
But yeah, so I found it interesting. Like when I've spoke to you, you told me maybe to cut the meditation out because it's I think you explained it to be I don't need to go do more like sort of away from my body.
Yep.
I need to integrate more into my body.
You've got it.
So like the yoga and the somatic practices.
Yes.
Is,
Bingo.
Yeah. So if you were, how could you, I suppose, tell someone in the audience like whether they need more like meditation or they need more?
Okay.
Of the other one?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great one. Ready? I'll give you an example. As soon as I hear someone say this, and if you're listening to this, if this is you, listen up. And when someone goes, "I'm a meditator," I go, "Too much meditation." As soon as there's a claiming of the identity of meditator, they've totally missed the point, right? I'm a meditator. I've been meditating for 10 years. Okay.
Cool.
Great. What happens when you stop kind of thing? Oh, well, I need it. They just transfer the dynamics of whatever they're attached to the meditation.
Yeah. I see a bit of a theme here.
Exactly. Now, the same as the intent. This is the same exact argument as the intense exercise. Intense exercise separates body and mind. Right? Cuts you off from your body because it dumps it full of neurochemicals, which is great for some people. Meditation, you can do the same thing. You can learn how to turn off the feelings in your body, which feels like freedom, but it's actually detachment. And I buckled myself with this personally. I thought I was becoming enlightened, which is a joke. Like, I wasn't. I was becoming more and more detached. And here's the subtle difference in experience between non-attachment and detachment. Non-attachment, let's just say you felt a bit clingy to... This is not about you, but alcohol. Let's say you're a bit...
Fine. Short start.
Alcohol, girls, and food. Right, let's just say you're... As he chokes on his water. Let's say you were a bit clingy to those things. And you knew you didn't have a very good relationship with those elements of life. For whatever reason, your psyche got a bit stuck to them. Now, detachment is pushing away the alcohol, food, and the girls. Pushing away out of fear of being caught by the world. Fear of being stuck into the addiction trap again. That's detachment. Detachment generates fear. So if someone's had an alcohol addiction and they go, I haven't drunk a beer in 4 years and 38 days. Well, now they're just attached to not being a drinker. Right, so that's detachment. You create fear from this element in the world that gets you stuck. So you're free from the behavior, but you're not free from the dynamic.
No.
And that's what... Yes.
Changing it over to something else.
Bingo.
It's just swapping something for something else.
Exactly. And that's what meditation can do if you're not careful. When you get clear on your practice and you understand it, non-attachment feels very different. Non-attachment means you can look at a beer on the table and go, yeah, I'll have one today. And you have one, and that's it.
You don't have 26.
You don't have 26.
Seriously?
Exactly.
Can you do that? Wow.
And so
Mind blown.
you know you have the propensity to get stuck to alcohol, but you've also developed a clarity and a depth where you can have one and still call it. But there's still got to be a wrestle there.
I like that.
Yeah, so that's non-attachment. Detachment comes with fear that the world's going to trap me. Non-attachment is I can be in the world and not be scared that my vices are going to grab me. And so one comes with fear, one comes with, let's say, it actually comes with more of a deeper self-appreciation and a sensitivity towards who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know my vices like it's no tomorrow. Like I've got to be really careful around food. I've got to be real careful around isolation because I enjoy it too much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know my traps.
Yeah, I know mine too, don't I?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I know where my shadowy elements are, that where my personal shadow pulls me into the collective shadow, and then I'm wrecked.
Mm. Okay, so here's one for you. So when, say food, for example.
Yeah. Oh, sweet food.
Okay, so what, so it's practice, or what is something tangible that someone can use that will then help them, say, not pick up that cupcake or
Yeah.
whatever? Like, what is it that,
Yeah.
or is it more so, not, or like you say, if you're doing that, then you're wrestling with it, then it's not really, you become attached to the not have, so that's,
I'm careful not to thin slice the tactics,
Yeah.
I'm careful not to just get too overly invested in, here's a tool to fix the problem stuck inside a problem solution model.
yeah.
Any form of stickiness or any form of attachment, those roots run really, really, really deep. Really deep. And so to, moving, and this is where, I'll come back to it, but this is where the East and the West need to start talking and hanging out a bit more together. Because they've both got really, really viable solutions. But they can both do more harm than good if they're not unified in a nice way. So, for example, like psychotherapy. If you're going to use psychotherapy and understand drives and motives and your subconscious and things like that, you can actually get really addicted to introspection and get, you just create problems to solve them. Right? So people that go to therapy can get addicted to therapy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then they become addicts of the addicts of I realized something. And then when people go too far to the east, meditation turns into medication, where I got stuck. And they actually never solve the problem. They just learn to get deeper and deeper away from it.
Disassociate, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But bringing these two together, man, it's the source. It's the one. Yeah. It's the ego development in the West of the psychotherapy and building up your ego with goals and values and understanding who you are, like building up your self system. But bringing in some of the very sophisticated 2,500-year-old practices that are purely based on understanding the fact that we exist, and creating those two developmental channels where you grow in consciousness and you grow your ego at the same time. You become an effective part of the world, and you study the fact that you exist. And you've got this almost too scarily perfect combination.
I like that, because I think when you were talking about before, like the East and like, so these Buddhist monks or whatever, or Hindus monks or whatever, but like you said, they were living in a different time.
Totally
so
different
for
time.
them, that was right for them and for that time.
Yes.
So to use that now isn't quite going to work.
No, it's
right?
actually deadly.
Yeah. So, and like you said, with the West, like we're very good at, I suppose, like the flip side of that. But to bring them two together is something that we need to do. But I think they try and fight each other. If
Totally.
that makes sense. Like,
Totally.
What?
Righteousness.
Why? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like the two religions fighting, right?
Yeah.
Like you're fighting over the same God, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting over the same thing. You know this, right? It's like love, peace.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's all the same thing.
That's that's crazy.
Yeah, we've all got our strong points, and we tend to ally ourselves behind our strong points. So, I've always got my teachers that I go back to, like, my teachers are not well-known teachers. Like James George, he's a Gurdjieffian mystic. Like, he's not really well-known. Rollo May, pretty solid standout psychologist in the 80s. So these people always remind me that I'm a Westerner. I'm a Westerner. I grew up in Western values. I'm almost 32. I'm extremely white. Like, I grew up dirt poor, but worked myself into something a bit more solid. And that's who I am, and I don't want to leave that behind. I don't want to become an Eastern mystic at all. Maybe I do a little bit. But
Isolation, love it.
It's attractive to me. But I have to remind myself that my brain was developed inside of a Western context.
Yeah.
Because I wiped myself out. Because I ran the Western race and felt completely out of whack with it. I felt completely...
didn't fit.
It didn't fit. I was like, this isn't the way for me. So I was like, I got it. I'll go meditate for 4 hours a day.
It's like you did the yin and the yang, right? You swung
Dude,
this
literally.
way, and then and to be perfectly honest, sometimes you got to do that, right? You
Yep.
got to go extreme this way
Yep.
and then go, hang on,
Course
the
correction.
answer has to be extreme the other way,
Yeah.
right? And then you find this middle, and that's what you're
Exactly.
talking about. Like you went complete west,
Complete
you went
west.
complete east, and now you're like, maybe
Hang
if
on.
we bring these two together,
Yeah.
ta-da!
Yeah. And the in-between was absolutely the deepest suffering I've ever felt, was realizing that neither way was the right way.
Was the right way, because then
And
you're lost,
I was
right?
in-
Like, what's gonna work?
I was in absolute existential chaos. I collapsed trying to do the Western thing. I made myself unwell. I transferred my intensity to the East, and I melted my values into nothingness. I melted my beliefs into nothingness, where I just felt like I was floating consciousness because my body was so painful. So I went hard west, hard east, and then I was like, and at the end of the eastern road, by the way, I was doing it incorrect, so that's why. At the end of that road, I just felt complete nihilism. And I'm like,
So explain
Yeah.
for people, what do you mean by doing it wrong? What?
well, I'd get home at about 4:30 or 5, and I'd light my candle and I'd look at it for 5 hours. And all I wanted to do was escape my sensations of life and being in Brisbane at that time.
Mm.
And it worked until it stopped working.
Yeah.
It worked for the sense that it gave me relief, but it didn't give me any solid ground to stand on. And I ended up, and this is, you got to be careful when you play with consciousness technologies, because it's no joke, you know, like I with effort forced my consciousness, forced my awareness out of reality through brute force. And so I got exactly what I asked for, which was nothing. And that was so empty and so painful and so disorientating that there was no point. There's classic nihilism. There was a loss of meaning for everything. There was no point in getting a girlfriend. There was no point doing anything because it was pointless. The meaning and the true essence of value and meaning got ripped out of everything because I meditated through force. And our Western brains are not. We're not capable of holding the states of mind like masters can, because their history is so much older and richer than ours. They've got foundations in their culture that they've built on. We haven't. We're children in the world, Australia. We're absolute children. And we haven't established the foundations of consciousness like these other countries have. And we go, we'll figure it out. We'll just jump in and meditate. It's like, no, missing a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I suppose, goes back to anything, like I was saying with the ayahuasca, you know, like
Bingo.
if you don't have that history, then it can all come unfold.
You can unravel yourself real quick.
Real fast, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what is typically, you know, bad trip and things like that. But you can't get stuck in a trip. This is the thing, that you can't get stuck in a trip. You can certainly get stuck in bad ways, but you're not stuck in the trip. You metabolize the compounds out of your system, right? What happens is that this is what I go back about ego development. When your ego is underdeveloped and you blast yourself off with a powerful plan, if that experience is too big for your ego is traumatized. That's what trauma is, an experience that's too big for me to handle. And these plants can do that. So when you open yourself up to a big experience like that and you're not ready for it, and your ego isn't developed to hold the line straight and true while you're inside of it and breathe and focus and breathe and focus, when you haven't trained your mind to do that, it can massively overwhelm you. Then you get traumatized, and then even though the compound has metabolized out, you don't know where you're at.
Yeah.
Because you've nailed yourself. So it feels like you're stuck in it. You're not. You've just traumatized yourself.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I know, like, for me, this is a little bit different, but when I was abusing ice a lot and I got a lot of psychosis.
Yeah.
And this is what, obviously, drugs are bad, right? Ice is bad, yeah?
Ice is bad.
But what I learnt from that is, okay, so I was taking it, and then straight away was like, like anxious, like complete anxious,
Okay.
like not thinking people talking about it, like I went into that.
Straight, yep.
And then because I was doing that so much, then when I wasn't taking it, I was still running that same
Bingo.
thought. So I was just, this is why I'm big on like neurological pathways. I was just training that pathway so much that then that just became the normal, right?
Yeah.
So then, and then it wasn't until I started, well, obviously got off that and went into like personal development, and I was like, if I could do that in a negative sense, like,
Bingo.
why can't I just do that in a positive sense, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I was like, hang on, there's something. That's when, so big part of like, that's why I love gratitude, right? Is just training
It's training.
the neurological pathways. So look for, what you want to look for. I'm not saying you don't go too far and you never see anything bad, right? Like that's not what I'm trying to say, because then people can do that,
Hyper
right?
optimism.
You go the other way, but it's better than being hyper negative, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to find, and then same thing. I think people go from one and then
One
they
extreme to
go
the
too
other.
far the other end, and then
Yeah.
bring yourself back to that happy medium.
Yes.
And like the same thing happens with exercise, right? They're overweight, and then all of a sudden they're addicted to training, and this is all training, right?
Exactly.
Then you need to bring yourself back. So
Yeah.
if you're on any part of that path, right, there's no wrong. Just know that can, and that's
pay
why
attention.
now when I'm with someone and I can see where they are on that sort of,
On the pendulum.
and I think veganism is another one, right? You
Oh,
see
that's a good one.
someone that comes vegan, right? It's just like everything's fucking, and it, I was seeing a girl and she was vegan. She went completely one way, right? And but I was accepting it. There's no judgment, because I just knew like that was her thing at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I just knew that it takes time for. If you're yelling at people not to be vegan, that's not going to change them from being, what I mean? That's
Not at
not how it works, right?
Not at all.
But yeah, anyway, interesting. That's a little bit off topic again, but that's cool.
Vegan digression.
Yeah, I just think, like, for me, like, I'm definitely not vegan. I do believe we need to eat less meat for our health. I think we obviously eat way too much meat. I think for the environment, it's obviously bad. I know the first time I read Tony Robbins' book, it must have been 6 years ago now. I think the book was in 1990, so it was a long time ago. And back then he said if everyone just cut their meat consumption by 10%, deforestation would stop. Like,
Wow.
Who can't stop 10%, right?
Yeah.
One steak a week.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right,
Like that's
right.
so little on impact on us, but on the
Uh-huh.
environment that is absolutely massive. So
Right.
that's when I started to like curb my eating a little bit, and
But you're still, still Jack. Look here, still juicy.
yeah, that's fair. But yeah, well, you absorb 40% more protein from plants, right? So you don't
there you
need
go.
as much.
Man, I'm bad at this topic, eh? Like, I have zero. Not zero, but just...
Chalking this one up to Ryan.
Yeah,
Tick for me.
tick.
So that's a big misconception when it comes to food, is people are like, oh, but where am I going to get all my protein from? Well,
Yeah.
you need half of what you're having before if you get it from a plant, because you absorb it.
Wow.
Way more,
That's
so
cool. That's a great little nutrition fact, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's, you don't need all that to
Yeah.
get what you want.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, and not just that, I think, but the thing that this is what really gets to me is I've looked into, and they're like, oh, but they're hurting the animals, right? It's very bad for
Yeah.
animals, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, all the studies that have been done now, that plants can feel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just as much as what
yeah,
we can.
yeah.
They're like, oh, but they don't. This is their argument. If you've talked to a vegan, this will be their
No,
argument.
I haven't had the pleasure.
So the argument is they don't have a
What's their argument based on? Is it an ethical argument of feelings? Like
yeah,
that's
no. Well, the animal feels more than what
Right.
the plant
So
feels,
that's their
because they've
position.
got a central nervous system, I think, there, or whatever. That's their argument.
'Kay.
And they're like, so yeah, obviously it hurts way more but then I know a guy who's really into plants, like that. Plants is his thing.
Okay.
And there was actually an experiment done where they had two plants and they put them in a room, and then they had like 10 people and they had to like draw out like a straw. Who got the shortest straw? No one knew who got the shortest straw, but at night time they had to go into the room and kill one of the plants, right? And then they come back out. And then the next day they walked each person into the room, and the plant that was alive, and the person that walked in that killed it, the vibration of it like freaked out. Like it knew who killed the plant beside it.
Oh my god.
So I was
that's
like, you can't
amazing.
tell me that plants don't feel as much as what that So your whole argument
Yeah.
is flawed. And someone who Neil deGrasse Tyson come out and said this, and the vegan community went
Lost it.
off. They were just like, how someone that's so smart like him, how could he? And I was just like, so if you want to stick it to a vegan, say that, right?
Plants feel.
yeah, plants feel just as much. But no, I am joking. Like I do think we need to be aware of a lot of bad practices when it comes to like killing animals and stuff like that. And plants definitely do feel just as much. And another interesting fact, do you know that a mushroom is more an animal than a plant?
I did not know that.
Yes.
Genetically?
Yes.
More of an animal than a plant?
Yes.
Yeah, wow, those suckers, eh?
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's why they're so special.
Yeah, totally. That's insane. The only thing I know about that is, like they're close to us genetically, aren't they? Or am I just talking rubbish? Aren't they quite close? Fungus?
I would be lying if I tried to say
Okay.
yes or no on that one. I could try and make that one up, but no, I won't. No, but they are fungus. Very interesting when you look into it. I think Joe Rogan brought on a fungus specialist, and I can't remember. But I remember listening.
I think it's Paul Stamets.
Yeah, I remember listening to it, going, "Holy fuck, this is incredible!"
This is
right?
level. Yeah.
And then I think, my belief is that's why there's so much wisdom in taking them, because they've been around for so long and they've got so much.
Yeah,
anyway.
totally.
So,
totally.
but anyway, I think we might leave it there, Nat. I think we've had a very good conversation.
Done, mate. Pleasure.
Thank you for coming along.
All good, no worries.
I definitely know that people would get a lot of value out of this, so
cool.
I appreciate your time, and
all good.
cheers for coming along to Neuronirvana podcast.
No worries. Man, I haven't even mentioned that your business name, platform name, is one of my favorite names ever. It's so good. You've just really captured kind of what we're talking about. Nirvana, obviously the experience of Nirvana, the Nirvanic state. And the neuro too brings in that really nice kind of like science underpinnings as well. So, mate, whatever you're doing, I'm a fan.
And then, so Nirvana, Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Oh, another
That's
layer.
the other layer.
Another layer. Got it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
great.
Awesome.
One little fun fact. Do you know the English translation of the word nirvana? Do you know what its symbolic representation?
No, I don't. Like, I know it's not quite enlightenment, but it's anyway, fill me in. So you obviously know what it is.
It's just a feeling and a sound of phew. Just because if you've ever had a minor satori or a minor nirvanic experience, that's what it feels like. It's like taking off a really tight pair of jeans, and you go, oh, that feels good. But it's on a being level. So that's what nirvana is. It's the we made it feeling.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Great.
That is fantastic. Oh, actually, one more question. So if you had to give advice to what's one gem that you know that, like, if you could just give that advice to anyone that's maybe struggling with anything in life, what's the one thing that you go?
That's a hard one.
I know it is very loaded, but go for it.
What's the one thing? Oh shit! Just give me a moment.
Meditate on this one.
If we can dedicate time to learn how to be in relationship and relationships, I think that's 75% of mental health, is actually understanding relationship to others, intimate relationships, sexual relationships, relationship with ourselves. I've just experienced so many people that absolutely suffer when it comes to relationships. So we can essentially, a little bit of background, we can essentially tie most mental health struggles into 3 categories. First one, relationships. Second one is, how do we manage uncontrollable arousal levels when our stress goes through the roof and then it dumps us, we get dumped through our motivation systems. We get massively anxious and fearful and then dumped down in depression, couldn't be bothered to do anything. So regulating that. And the last one is kind of like fundamentals of life: hygiene, food, structure, physical training, things like that. those three things cover so much of the mental health
It does.
basis, like almost 80%. The rest is kind of like serious pathology.
Yeah.
But most generalized mental health fits into those three things. How do we understand and manage arousal levels that go out of whack? How do we navigate and feel deeply in relationships without closing our heart down? And how do we understand that basics in life that are told we need to be disciplined about are actually just basics of life? And so, I think I would summarize that. If you can learn and understand relationship, it'll cover so much. And that's practical advice too. I didn't want to go too whimsical.
No, of course. Yeah,
it's just incredibly practical. Yeah.
I think that brings me to, I think the biggest Harvard study ever done on happiness, on anything. It was a 75-year study where they followed people from all walks of life, whatever, and then they followed them for 75 years. And the number one thing for happiness was relationships.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah, so if you had didn't have to be a partner,
Yep.
just, but if you had solid
Yep.
friendship relationships and had that connection, that loving connection with people, that was the number one factor from the biggest Harvard study ever done.
Yeah.
Was just relationships. So, that's why a big part of Neuronirvana, we've got a whole thing on loving connection.
Awesome.
So, so call up your friends, see if they're okay, go see them. Don't go, hey man, what's up?
How you doing, bro?
Oh, I'm connected, man. Look,
Yeah.
I've got my phone, right? I'm connected to everyone. Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, thanks
very much, mate. No, I appreciate it. That was really good. Really
Cool.
good.
All right, leave it there. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Neuronirvana podcast. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to know a bit more about us, jump on Instagram, Neuronirvana_ and Neuronirvana on Facebook. Also, if you'd like to check out our services and if we can help you in any way, jump on our website, neuronirvana.com.au.